Flying Scotsman is a steaming memory machine.
And pay the cost of shipping Flying Scotsman home.
We put my granddad's ashes in the smoke box of the Flying Scotsman.
I proposed to my fiancée on the Flying Scotsman. Everyone's so emotional.
My grandfather helped build the Flying Scotsman.
We had the chance of a lifetime to buy Flying Scotsman.
It is special to everybody in their own way.
It's a big family that Flying Scotsman has got.
I would hope to see it carry on running for many more successful years.
He just gave me such hope because he got back on the rails, and I thought, well, I can get my life back on track as well.
My name is Bob Gwynn. I work here as a curator at the National Railway Museum. I helped with the exhibition that was about the history of Flying Scotsman. They asked me could I write a book about it. So it's the whole history of Flying Scotsman the locomotive and Flying Scotsman the train. Since that time I've had the privilege of meeting the people who'd once owned it and lots of people who worked on it. My father was a railwayman. Scotsman is one of those icons of railway enthusiasts. It's been around a long time. As a result of that, then there were several trips I did with it with my dad, which were quite memorable. Coming back from Hellifield back to Carnforth, as the sun was setting, so the rails turned into gold, and you're swinging around these gold rails. Flying Scotsman is a steaming memory machine. You stand near it and just listen to people talk, and they'll come up with a whole host of memories that spin out of that symbol. This locomotive is now just approaching 100 years old. It's inevitable that it's got all those stories attached to it.
Flying Scotsman by Charlie Perrin. Ear defenders, camera, the thrill of the chase ensues. Where do I stand for the best glimpse? Away from the crowds, but close enough to get my steam train fix. I can sense his vibration long before anyone can see it or hear it. My autism super sense is kicking in. Suddenly puffing out, billowing smoke, rising patterns swirl and twirl into the late sun-streaked sky. The hiss and the fizz of the boiler gives me goosebumps. My name's Charlie, and my connection to the Flying Scotsman is I have autism, and steam trains are my special interest, and Flying Scotsman is my most favourite engine ever. When he did his inaugural run from London up to York, I was recovering from a period of illness and I'd lost my memory. And my family brought me down to try and spark a memory of steam trains because I didn't realise that I loved them that much. Hearing his whistle and seeing him just sparked my memory. He just gave me such hope because he got back on the rails, and I thought, well, I can get my life back on track as well. Everybody's got a magic moment to talk about Flying Scotsman. To me, it's like greeting an old friend when I see him. I'll do anything just to get a glimpse of him. And when you just see him, everybody's happy. So everybody's waving at each other, people are chatting, almost like a shared humanity. Being autistic, I often feel on the outside of the community, and he kind of brings a community feel to places. He just fills me full of hope.
My name is Adam. And my connection to Flying Scotsman is that I received a train set when I was about 9, nearly 10 years old, and it holds great memories for me. About Christmas '94, in the build-up to Christmas, you always got the Argos catalogue. Flying Scotsman was there, and that's what I wanted, that's all I wanted. And then on the day, I just opened this one big box, I knew what it was, and Flying Scotsman was there. My dad had to put aside a whole week's worth of his salary in order just to buy this set. So I wanted to look after it, and it was just a beautiful looking train. And then that's where my sort of love for Flying Scotsman really started. I started buying books, and I bought sort of videos and watching documentaries all about it. So it just kind of spiraled from there. The first time I saw Flying Scotsman was on the first year after it had this big restoration and returned to the rails. The very first time was incredibly special, because I actually didn't think I would ever see it. It was the noise, and it was the sight of it just going past. Yeah, it felt really good. And I've been excited to see it ever since that first one.
So my name's Robin Beeson, and my connection to the Flying Scotsman is in May 2016. We put my granddad's ashes in the smoke box of the Flying Scotsman. We're very excited because we'd been waiting for 5 years since my granddad died to do his final wishes. Steam trains meant the world to him. What better than the most famous steam train of all? For me, a steam train isn't a place or a thing. When they're in steam, they're alive. They're not just a machine. And my granddad knew that, and my granddad taught that to me. When he retired from the railway, he spent his last years giving me as many experiences as I could. My granddad was a guard for over 40 years on the southern region, and we knew that this would be the place, and we spoke to the firemen, and he said to us that he'd never had a request like it, and he said he'd be privileged to do so. We heard a long, lengthy whistle that was very uncharacteristic of where we were, and we knew that that's where they'd put the ashes of my granddad. I felt really emotional when I heard the whistle, when I heard that, you know, we'd done what he wanted us to do. It was a lovely day. And there was no better way of remembering my granddad.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and my connection to the Flying Scotsman is I saw it at Norwich Station in November 2017. The Flying Scotsman's a special train, and it's just one that everybody wants to see. My mum had always wanted to see it, and unfortunately, in July of 2017, she'd passed away. You know, from a young child, we'd always been sort of going to steam railways, as it was just something that we always did together. So it was really special to see it for myself as well as for her. It was very, very emotional to see it. I think it was doing one of the cathedral tours, so it came into Norwich. The day I saw it was actually the Remembrance weekend, so it had like the poppy wreath on the front, which just made it like extra special. Obviously you've got all the smells of the smoke, all the noise from the engine. When I see the Flying Scotsman, it definitely makes me feel like my mum's keeping an eye on it with me and she's watching it with me, so yeah, it's good.
Hi, I'm Stuart Cutmore. My grandfather, John Schimmels, helped build the Flying Scotsman in 1923. My grandfather started his life in Hexthorpe, as a lot of the plant men did. Got an apprenticeship at the plant when the Flying Scotsman was built. It got me wanting to join the railway when I left school. He would tell us some stories about the friends and comradeship that they had at the works. I found out in 1980 when I joined the works. There's other great locos come out of Doncaster Works, but the Flying Scotsman just, you know, hits me. The history's there, it's in the family, it's in the blood. Once it's in your blood, you love trains. For me, knowing my granddad's been involved, the whistle as it comes through Doncaster Station every time, it's moving. It really is moving.
I'm Diane Muldowney, and I was lucky enough to get a footplate pass to go on the Flying Scotsman. I'm currently studying for my MA in Fine Art and researching my family rail history. So the journey on the Scotsman, I got on here at Hellifield. The driver actually worked with my dad at Rosegrove Shed, so it connected all the family history together. A great experience of watching the driver and the fireman working together as well on the footplate was just immense. One evening the Scotsman came in light engine into Hellifield Station, and that particular night it was Mick who was driving. I asked him if he could get me some smokebox char out of the front of the engine, and I did a drawing with it. Just such a fantastic engine. In the blood, I guess.
My name is Michael Kelly. I'm a driver for West Coast Railway Company at Carnforth, and for the last 6 years I've been one of the team of drivers that work the Flying Scotsman on the main line. I started at Rosegrove as an engine cleaner, bar lad and an engine cleaner, and then you get promoted to fireman, and I loved it. I loved being a fireman. I've never been a fireman on Flying Scotsman. I was deemed too old, but I was lucky enough to be a steam driver. I've driven it down to Cardiff, I've driven it to Holyhead, Carlisle, York. The actual physical driving of Flying Scotsman is, I love it. Everybody wants to come on the footplate, everybody wants to come and cab it, everybody wants to come and have the photograph taken with it.
My name is Patrick Mulley. I was the owner's representative for Flying Scotsman from 1982.
I'm Joan Millie. I'm Patrick's wife. and I was a train widow for all those years.
My day-to-day routine with Flying Scotsman was routine maintenance. It was such a popular engine, and one of the corporate jobs we did was a 10-day tour of Scotland. I'd been investigated by the security forces to make sure I wasn't a risk, and then I was informed that we were about to work a royal train, of which nobody has got to know anything about. It was top secret. But before we left to do the royal train, we had a message that the Queen Mother had requested to visit the footplate. On arrival at North Woolwich, the Queen Mother went on the footplate. She sat on the fireman's seat and she posed for the press. The Times covered it, but the Queen Mother actually sat on the fireman's seat, the Flying Scotsman. After we'd come back from the 10-day tour of Scotland, the engine was left at Carlisle. I had a word with the inspector. I said, look, I've got my wife with me. Do you mind if she travels on the footplate?
The inspector was there, said, right, he said, you don't stand on here, he said, if you don't do anything. Right, okay. So he said, there's the shovel. So I started. We noticed out of the window there was a big wedding going on. And of course, Patrick blew the whistle and the photographers turned and it was flash, 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 everything. So somewhere in their wedding album, they have Flying Scotsman. It was absolutely marvellous, it was.
I'm Wayne.
Hello, I'm Amer.
Our connection to the Flying Scotsman is that I proposed to my fiancée, a soon-to-be wife, in May, on the Flying Scotsman whilst on the Salisbury countryside tour. The next day would have been our anniversary of 4 years being together. There's a long tunnel when the champagne had come out. I was looking rather shifty in my coat because I had the ring in my pocket. As soon as we got through the tunnel, I knew it was the time to propose to her. So I got up, got into the aisle with the train, and got down on one knee. And
Yeah.
everyone's so emotional. And then
People next door to us, they got really emotional as well and took loads of pictures for us. Everyone you speak to knows what it is. You say we got engaged on the Flying Scotsman, they say, oh, it's beautiful. When I first saw it, I was emotional, I must admit. Not many people can say they're engaged on the Flying Scotsman, and I can.
Hi, I'm John, and I had a driver experience day on the Flying Scotsman on the Llangollen Heritage Railway. It was such a wonderful experience. It was an iconic steam train I've always admired. It's something that I have always wanted to do, is to drive a steam train ever since an early age, and there's no better iconic train. In the driver's seat at the controls, with the smell of the oil, the heat and the hissing of the steam, pulled into the station and then flagged away and into the highlight, which is the Berwyn Tunnel. It was just so exhilarating, but it was the noise more than anything in a narrow tunnel with all that steam around you. You're accelerating as well, so the power is full on. It really was amazing. I think the history of the loco, being the first train, I think, to go 100 miles an hour, everybody all around the world knows of the Flying Scotsman.
My name's John Hillier. I'm connected to Flying Scotsman, I guess, through my father, who was a technical assistant for Sir Nigel Gresley. The Flying Scotsman story is of particular interest to me because I spent a lot of time photographing it in the 1960s. In 1969, it went to the States, and I was fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time. I saw the locomotive on its way to Liverpool docks from Doncaster and managed to blag my way to get permission to go onto the dockside. There weren't a lot of people around the locomotive. There were a lot of people, dockers there, who were sort of preparing the engine to be lifted. It was quite something unique, seeing an engine being lifted on board a ship to be taken to the other side of the world. I managed to blag my way onto the ship and see it on board. I was the only person basically on the ship taking photographs of the engine. I think those of us that were in the UK really were a bit worried as to whether it would ever come back. It did certainly capture the imagination. It has this aura about it, which attracts people.
My name is David Banks. I first encountered the Flying Scotsman when it came to Canada in 1970. My granddad drove for the LNER out of Lincoln, and the engineer that came with the train had known my granddad. They were going to move the engine and the train from Oakville to Buffalo, and he invited me along. I had been around steam for a long time. I have my steam license here in Canada. Had a chance to drive it a little bit on the main line. Driving it was just unbelievable. They let me back the engine into the workshop. There was no steam people around in the States, so I ended up taking the injector off, and we were able to fix it, put it back on. The places we stopped, there was always lots and lots of people out taking photographs. For the Americans, it was a totally different locomotive that they weren't used to seeing. Everybody around the world knows of the Flying Scotsman, and coming up on its 100th anniversary, it just makes it very, very special.
My name's Richard Hinchcliffe, and my family, in particular my mum and dad, helped manage the locomotive. My father was the secretary of the Gainsborough Model Railway Society, and in 1969, when the locomotive travelled to America, my father was hired to be in charge of the locomotive's watering and coaling arrangements. The tour started in Texas, and it finished in Niagara Falls in Ontario. By the time the train got to Baltimore, my father was asked to manage the whole train, the whole tour. Bill McAlpine sent my father over to rescue the locomotive from the debtors whilst the locomotive was stored in San Francisco. I spent 5 months touring America with the Flying Scotsman. As a 13-year-old boy, I had numerous adventures there. The train became known amongst the people that operated it as a circus. The American public loved Flying Scotsman while it was over there. It was a fantastic experience. Flying Scotsman is famous for being Flying Scotsman. It's a personality. It performs really well. It is part of our family. We're just one of many families that have contributed to it. It is still the most famous steam locomotive in the world, and it attracts thousands and thousands of people.
I'm Clive Gold, work for the Science Museum. My first introduction with Flying Scotsman was in 1975 as a young child. Went to watch it beside the railway, and it's one of those views that you never forget. In 2016, I was working with Riley's as a volunteer, and the role came up as an engineer to work with Flying Scotsman, looking after it, operating it on the network and on heritage railways. There's very little remaining of the original 1923 locomotive. All railway vehicles have regular maintenance, and as part of that you replace bits, you repair pieces. The nice bit is to follow the traditions of engineering and the pride in doing the best you can. Working on the steam engines is a real pleasure. The early stuff was definitely designed to last a period, but I don't think any of us thought it would come to its 100th year. From the youngest child to the oldest people, all for some reason relate to Flying Scotsman. It is special to everybody in their own way.
I'm Tracy Parkinson, and going back till 2004, I was working at the Railway Museum. We had the chance of a lifetime to buy or acquire for the nation Flying Scotsman, and I was asked to put together a 6-week programme of rail tours. I had the time of my life. It was brilliant. Some of the fondest memories are the collection of people that I got to work with. We made lifelong friends. Everybody thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. It was wonderful. I think it was the challenges that made it so entertaining when it worked well. It came to York. It was extremely popular. People just came out in their thousands to see it. And it is that element of, it is accessible and it is touchable and it is within the public's reach. I would hope that at some point in somebody's lifetime they get that magic moment with the engine that I've had. It changed to being in public ownership. Public could see it, public could access it, and they actually own little bits of it. That's magic.
So my name's Colin Green. I'm an engineering director at Riley & Son. So Riley & Son are a team of engineers that specialise in locomotive engineering. The company got involved in the early days really. We were asked to go and do some maintenance on the loco. On this very road we overhauled Scotsman, built the boiler where it stood now, overhauled the chassis there, and it's ironic we're back here again doing this work again. We're doing the overhaul now ready for the 2023 centenary year, which the locomotive's 100 years old. So it's a big celebration. It's a very privileged opportunity and a position to be in for the company as well as all the staff. Any locomotive in heritage is important. This one's always in the limelight. All the team get the opportunity to go out and ride with it. Like now it's proper, hard, heavy, dirty work. But when the engine's running and everybody's coming out and everyone's waving at you, it's a nice warm feeling. Seeing the face on young children come and see you when you're in a station, and that one snippet of time you've got with that child, when they're older, they'll remember. It's one of the famous ones. It's always one of the ones that's at the front of people's mind if you say, tell me a steam engine. It's stamped in history. It's part of our true British culture.
Flying Scotsman and the best birthday ever. Hello, I'm Michael Morpurgo.
And I'm Michael Foreman.
And this is our lovely book, Flying Scotsman and the best birthday ever. Written by me and illustrated by me. What makes Flying Scotsman so special to me is that when I was growing up, and I was young once, this train was the most famous train in the entire world. To me, it's always been the most beautiful train. It still is the most beautiful train. And today, I stroked it and I've climbed up into it and pretended I could drive it.
So it takes me back to my childhood when I would travel very frequently on the trains. My dad worked on the railway, and so we had cheap tickets and we could travel all over the place. And just the sound of the engines huffing and puffing before they set off from the station was exciting. And to hear those sounds again today is absolutely thrilling. It takes me right back to my childhood.
I'm Dr. Sophie Vora. I'm a research associate at the National Railway Museum in York. Flying Scotsman is a really interesting locomotive. It's become one of those iconic symbols of the steam age. Even as steam was being phased out, people were so willing to save it and preserve it. It's been given the chance to continue to inspire people and to think about these great engineering feats that we had in the 20th century. It's really wonderful to connect it back to those that made it, those who ran it, those who just enjoy it because they do. It's very much a moving memory machine, and there's something really wonderful about being able to be in your local area and to see this coming down and to get that sense of the smells and the sounds. We're very lucky that people still find a connection to this engine. I think it will continue to be this icon of the steam era.
What's the number normally? 4472. Can you see 4472 in it? No, what's it got?
Wow. Yeah, look how big its wheels are.
Really good boy. Yeah? Good man. Yeah.
Yes!
Is that the same one? Are you going to sit in the driver's seat?
Yeah.
One more? A little bit longer?